So I would love to get practical just because I know my audience so well.
Yeah.
So if somebody hears this episode, they're renting, they want their rent reported. What do they actually do? Walk us through it step by step. So like for instance, who qualifies? What are the actual requirements? Let's get nitty gritty.
For sure. So I'd like to show you how Rental Kharma does it, and then maybe how the industry has evolved. Because there's a lot of companies that came in and got venture capital backed, but they do a different process, and there's pros and cons to it. And I think at Rental Kharma, we have a core value list that we came up with years ago together as a team. And on the top of that list is you always do the right thing even when nobody's looking over your shoulder. And it's very important that we don't give any bad direction. And if I think I'm even giving something there's a question, I tell them what that downside could be so they can understand it. And a lot of things you go through in life, especially when it comes to money or finance or buying a car or whatever, they don't tell you the whole story. And I think that's a disservice to folks. But if you want to use Rental Kharma, you can add your past rent onto your credit report as well as your ongoing. You can either sign up online, it takes about 5 minutes, or you can do an expedited phone call if you need something same day. But because it's so quick now, that's really not even that big of a deal. It's an additional $25 for an expedited call. And what happens then is we do that verification all during that call. And it uploads to the credit bureau that night. So it's on there within a day or two, which is way faster than the early days.
Hello, everyone. I am Micah Smith, and I am back with another episode of Rebuild and Rise. And I am so excited. As I have promised you, I have some amazing guests. And listen, you have been paying rent on time every month, maybe for years. And the three most powerful financial institutions in the country, Experian, TransUnion, Equifax, have not been reporting this into your mortgage scores until April 22nd of 2026, when Vantage 4.0 was introduced. And today I have a very special guest with us, and his name is Cullen. He is the CEO of Rental Kharma. He has such a unique perspective. He's not going up fighting the bureaus. He's not doing what we do. He's actually a furnisher. So he has a very different perspective, and we're so excited to bring him on the show today. So without belaboring it, I want to introduce the CEO of Rental Kharma. I would like to introduce Cullen to the show. Cullen, thank you so much for being here today. And I don't want to say your last name because I have a feeling I'm going to slaughter it. If you'd like to say your last name for us, that'd be great.
Yeah. Well, I'll share the story of my last name with you. The ladies in the audience will love the story. Okay. I can promise you that.
Sure. Absolutely.
But yeah, thank you. And as far as the title CEO goes, I actually like founder better because
Founder.
CEO sounds like some guy in a corner office. And I went to a program at Stanford years ago, not because I could afford it or not because I had the grades, but because Rental Kharma actually got me in to the grad school on scholarship because of the mission we're on, because we have such an impact in the Hispanic community and underserved communities. Some people that found of me, and they actually invited me to come to grad school there. And I learned a lot of things there that really helped me see the world differently. One of them is you don't fight the air war, you fight the ground war. So when you think of the air war, that's the executive in the corner office with the glass windows.
Right.
In my office, when we all had us all together before COVID, my desk was right in the middle of everybody. And it was always like that. And I took that after a guy that started Zappos years ago, Tony Shea. And they taught that in the class. And I'm like, that's who I am. I'm like, I love that because you can't teach a dishwasher to wash the dishes if you don't know how to wash them yourself.
So true.
So
Oh,
that's
I
why I
love
like
that.
founder a little bit better, Micah.
I love it. I'm so with you on that. That's funny because that's also on my signature as well as founder
Yep.
and president. So I can sort of relate to that. So
It
my
is.
bad, founder and
No
president.
worries. I mean, I still this morning I picked up two
Yeah.
calls on our system when I saw my team was busy.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I just grabbed the calls. But I have to, once in a while, because I forget a process thing, I have to grab them and say, can you help me with this? But I didn't want the call to go unanswered.
I love it. That's amazing. So what I want to do is I do want to jump in because obviously I want to start with the person before the product because the
Sure.
last conversation that you and I had, you had spoken about some very personal things. And so I really want people to understand who you are and what you built and why. So Where did you grow up, and what was life like before you became the person that you are now?
Yeah, so I grew up as a kid in the hills of East Tennessee, and I have a very Tennessee accent that I can turn on at a moment's notice when I'm talking with somebody from there. I'm moving back there actually in a few weeks, which I'm very happy to be doing. I'm going to save a lot of money on living expenses from Colorado. And
Sure.
being around where I grew up is a lot of fun. Grew up with a single mom in a single wide trailer. Had a sperm donor who was in prison. Found out in fourth grade from another kid in my class. Which was a funny one. After eighth grade, I had been begging my mom to move to Illinois to this small farm town where she had actually grown up, where all of our extended family was, my grandparents, aunts, and uncles. So we ended up going up there, and my grandfather actually sort of took me under his wing a little bit because, no dad kind of around or anything. He was just an accountant, there was nothing fancy, but he played in a little golf league out at the local country golf course. And he took me out there with him and his buddies a couple of times in their senior league. And he put a golf club in my hand. It was my grandma's club. And I actually got out there and I liked it. And the reason I liked it, Micah, was because coming from East Tennessee, you sound like a redneck, okay? Or a hillbilly or whatever. And when you move to Illinois, you sound like a hillbilly to those people from Illinois. And they were nice, but they always loved to laugh at how you talked, right? And I
Mhm.
learned that golf was a very quiet sport and you didn't have to talk a lot. So
Wow.
I went out there a lot because nobody's going to poke fun at you. And I ended up getting really good really fast. Another guy out there that was my age was in the next farm town over, and he and I became best friends. And he was really good at golf. And I watched him and I learned a lot. And lo and behold, won a couple tournaments in high school and got a scholarship to college. And
Wow.
that was while we still lived. My mom, we actually moved to the trailer park. We lived in a single wide trailer, and it was nothing fancy, but there it was. And I wasn't going to go to college because I had literally a C minus GPA in high school, and I wasn't sure what it was going to happen. But then I got this opportunity. I took advantage of it. I did all right, and then I ended up going and transferring after 2 years to Mississippi State, where they have a professional golf management program that teaches you how to be a golf pro. And you get a business degree, and I actually got way better grades. Like, you have a business, degrees, and I got like a 3.5 then. That was pretty decent. Then they get you these jobs as interns at fancy private country clubs. So I got to work at some of the fanciest clubs that are around. Today they're playing the PGA at Aronimink. I have classmates that were friends that used to work there. So it
Wow.
was that level of place. So I got to see the who's who. I got to meet Joe Biden years ago before he was anybody. And he hugged everybody then too. I got that Joe Biden hug a few times, but it was a lot of fun. And it got me out of the trailer park and so forth. But in those days, when I worked at the country club, I never told anybody where I grew up.
Yeah.
I was ashamed of it, right?
Sure. Yeah.
And you were like, yeah, no, I'm just a kid at the fancy country club, and you're around all these crazy successful people. Years later, I moved to Colorado, started a company called Leapfrog Internet doing dial-up internet access. I learned telecom working at AT&T, and T, and I literally grew that to a decent sized company over about 8 years.
Mhm.
Started with my son's mom, so it was a husband-wife thing. I think that's part of your world too, maybe. And I learned those things. And years later, after going from the trailer park, we had actually accumulated $1 million net worth. And my son's mom, she grew up the same way in Hawaii in a school bus on the Big Island. She literally lived in a school
Wow.
bus without a bathroom. It was
Wow.
painted pink. Up
Wow.
by the volcano in a very rural place back in the day when there was no electric to it or nothing. So we both came from humble backgrounds, and we had made it to $1 million of birth. We built the company ourselves, and then the economy crashed in 2008. We had invested all of our money in real estate in
Wow.
2006 because dial-up internet was going away. We couldn't do broadband cable because of Comcast monopolies. So we lost everything. We went bankrupt because of all that. So
Wow.
from nothing to a pretty good to next to nothing.
Wow.
And we ended up moving back to Hawaii. She'd been asking for years. And I'm like, fine, let's go. It's a good time. Our sons too. Let's try it. So we went back there for a little over a year, and we happened to go pull our credit after moving. And I'm like, bankruptcy, 580. What are you going to do? And I'm like, well, we're paying $1,800 a month in rent. Why is that not on my credit report? That was
Yeah.
literally the moment.
Yeah.
It's
Wow.
2011. And I'm like, well, I'm the kind of guy that entrepreneur, you just Google your problem, right? You're just searching for your problem,
Yeah.
a solution. I searched for it, and what I stumbled upon was a CNN story that they had shared on Experian's website. That was Wolf Blitzer. Everybody's heard of that guy. And it was a situation room, and he says, Experian's now going to accept rent on credit reports. And the ladies on the show are like, Dana Bash, I think, was on there. She's like, this is amazing. This is going to help millions of people. And I got goosebumps. I just got them now because I'm like, I just found the solution to my problem. I didn't think about starting a company. I was just like, sign me up.
Yeah.
And I go and research it. And you know what? They were full of it. There was no mass system for the 100 million renters in the country. It was only going to be that they're going to collect some data from large property management companies, which actually, when you break down the 100 million renters in this country, only 3% rent from these big apartment complexes.
Wow.
70% independent landlords like me renting from you, and you have one rental.
Right.
And then the other 27% is like regional property management companies, college property management companies, and stuff like that. So it turns out there wasn't a solution there. And after a year in Hawaii, my son's mom, Christina, says, let's just go back to Colorado because Hawaii's a little too hard. She's like, I had enough. It was like,
Okay.
it was a neat return, but she didn't want to stay. So we ended up going back. And she's like, I bought us tickets to a thing called Startup Weekend Denver. I'm like, okay. Yeah, you got to get up on stage and pitch this idea about adding rent to a credit report. And she got up and pitched a different idea. And there's literally 200 people for a weekend in a co-working space, and 30 of them stand up and pitch ideas. And then they form teams around it, 6-7 person teams. And by the end of the weekend, you stay until midnight every night. You have to come up with the prototype of your business.
Wow.
And then they vote on the best ideas. And so lo and behold, a lot of people in that room said, I want my rent and my credit report. And they voted us to be like, we finished number 2 behind a kid that made sushi. And lo and behold, it was like off to the races. So I started to apply to the technology accelerators. I don't know if you ever heard of Techstars or
No.
Y Combinator?
No.
That's where Silicon Valley companies go to get going. Uber,
Okay.
Dropbox, those companies went through Y Combinator. And
Okay.
it's like 3 guys and an idea show up and they accept you into a very hard to get in program, like going to Stanford or MIT. It's hard to get in.
Sure.
They give you a little bit of money to get you going, and then they surround you with mentors and things like that. So we ended up getting in one in Nashville, Tennessee. I went down there for 3 months and kind of got my legs, got going on it. Then I came back to Colorado, and it took a while to get going because I didn't have any knowledge of credit bureaus. I was scared of them.
Sure.
We're
Sure.
all scared. I'm like, who do I get on the phone? So what I did is I got back to Denver, and it turns out TransUnion has an office in Denver for their landlord screening. What do they call
Oh,
that?
interesting.
Yeah. And tenant screening, I think is the name they call it.
Correct.
Yeah, tenant screening. And so I just looked on LinkedIn and I'm like, I got to find a sales guy. I can't go trying to get a VP or something. I'm just
Right.
going to find a sales guy. So I found a guy and I sent him a LinkedIn thing because I said, can I take you to lunch? I got an idea. I don't want to run by you. He goes, sure. I'm a sales guy. They're always open about anything, right? We go down and I told him what I wanted to do. And he goes, I think you can do this because there's been talk about rent on reports. This is 2012, right?
Yep.
Take him to lunch. Within 6 weeks, I got a signed agreement from a VP of the division in Denver. I'm like, we're
Wow.
off to the races. Yes.
Wow.
Right?
Okay.
The TransUnion. And I'm thinking, okay. And I had already got my CTO. I'd found him in a thing in Boulder, Colorado called Pitch to Developers, where you stand up in front of a room of coders and you say, this is what I want to build. And then guys come up to you and say, I'll be a part of your company, but you give them equity to be a part of it. He started for nothing. He actually put some money into the business
Wow.
because he believed in what we were doing. So
That's
it
incredible.
was me and him. Yeah. And we didn't have any rent income, no sales, no nothing, because you can't do anything until you got the agreement. And after we got our agreement, they actually pushed us, and we got in touch with the people in Chicago at the headquarters with their PR department.
Sure.
They did a press release. We were actually in the Wall Street Journal as the personal finance tip of the week on March 13th of 2012, before we even had a customer.
Wow.
We got the New York Times, the New York Post, and all these things before we even had customers. And they had feature stories, and we're like, man, we're going to do well. Guess what? Renters don't read the Wall Street Journal. Literally zero customers from that.
I'm sure.
But then what's crazier is the weekend before, or the week before this went into the Sunday edition of the Wall Street Journal, the one that they print and put in all the local newspapers. We get a call from the guy who I took to lunch, and he says, Cullen, you're on the board agenda at TransUnion in a couple of weeks, or next week. And I'm like, wow, they must think we're great. Maybe they want to buy us. He's like, no, I don't think it's that good. And I was like, oh, really? The following week, we got a letter and they canceled the agreement.
No.
Yes. You want to talk about how much a knife in the heart hurts? Unbelievable. Why?
Okay.
Not because we were bad and not we're going to do it legitimately. There was nothing along these lines. It had to do with they had not funded any process inside the company to handle this. It didn't fit into the standard Metro 2 stuff.
Sure.
So they weren't ready for it.
So really quickly, before we continue, because you just said something, you said before it fits into the standard Metro 2 stuff.
Yeah.
Really quickly, will you, in layman's terms, can you explain what Metro 2 is? Because no one's going to know what that means.
Think of a spreadsheet that you give a name and you call it Metro 2, and it has a bunch of columns in it. And then all the rows are data that fit into each of those columns. It's a formatted spreadsheet to a degree that is standardized, that every reporting company has to use this specific format.
Yeah. Perfect.
That's basically what I interpret it to. Okay.
Okay. Perfect.
And then
so they didn't have anything set up.
It. The spreadsheet gets updated every time a payment gets updated in our system, which is hundreds of a day. That gets updated in our database, and my CTO Kevin has an upload that uploads this Metro 2 file, or this file with our big long name on it, into the credit bureau's database in Metro 2 format.
Yep. Perfect.
Yeah. And then that's what feeds the whole ecosystem, and that creates standardization across the credit bureaus. So that's their standard reporting format, so that there's consistency for data going to TransUnion, Equifax, and Experian. Perfect. That's how I would say that works.
Perfect. Yep. Yeah. Okay. Amazing.
No worries. So then so it turns out, but they said, well, hang tight with us because we think this will be going. Okay. So we ended up going and having meetings down at their office in the tech center in Denver. And we worked with them, and they would say, well, this is how we want to do it. And one of the things early on was, we think you need to get a copy of the driver's license of every landlord. Okay. We're like, no, this is going to work. So we'll test anything. So we tested it with like a pilot group of people. Landlords did not want to give a driver's license.
Mm-hmm.
So we went back to them and said, that's dead. We can't do it. They won't do it. But we asked them what they would do, and they said they'd take a quiz from DMV questions. Lo and behold, to verify identity, because when we go verify, we have to verify the ownership of the property, which is the deed at the county level, right? We have some national databases, but a lot of times it's local. So you're searching through stuff, and then you got to verify that that person on the deed is the person you're speaking with, to verify that they can validate the rent. Once you've done that, we're good, and they can confirm the move-in date, how much they pay, and that they've ever been more than 30 days late in the last 2 years over the phone. Or we have an online way they can do it through a little quiz that's the same quiz. So that's how that validation process works. So a year and a half later, the same agreement with the modifications to it on how things are done, we got it signed, and we went live a year and a half later. I had to beg my CTO and my intern that had come on to help start the company to stick around after that first no letter because they were like, well, it's not going to happen. Move on. And I'm like, guys, I think it will. So just please hang with me. So I said, here's more equity. Just stick around. You don't have to do anything, but let's just wait it out. And lo and behold, it happened, and we got going. And I'll never forget this, Mike. In the first month, we had, I think, 78 people signed up for our service, and it happened in like multiple states right away. The second month, it was like 450, and we were at 800 by the third month. Wow. And by the sixth month, we had members in all 50 states on word of mouth. We didn't have a venture capital budget of anything. It was all bootstrap.
Yep.
And that happened, and then, well, ever since, we've now helped like 135,000 to date
That's
to get there.
incredible.
Yeah,
That's
so
amazing.
it was a painful process, but it was very much worth it, and what got me to where I am today, as you're saying, is now I talk about how I grew up all the time, just like today. There's no shame at all, and
Yeah.
it's because I relate so well to the people that we serve,
Yeah.
it just hits you. And I
Yeah.
hear these stories from folks, and it's like, "Oh my gosh," and it's like, I've been there, or I learned something from them, and it helps me because I'm able to share that with another family, and the things that they say to us is unbelievable how kind it is. It's like people ask to pray for me, that God bless you. It's just all these beautiful things
Yeah.
that tell you you found what you're supposed to be doing is really what it
Yeah.
boils down to. And I'm like, somebody could come up to me tomorrow and offer me a job for $1 million a year, and I'd say no thanks. You know,
Absolutely.
I'm just
Yeah.
fine doing what I do, and it ain't getting rich, but it's rich inside, you know?
Yeah, exactly. I think it's an amazing story. I mean, I think it falls back to I always say you're most qualified to help the person that you used to be. And
Oh,
so I think this
I never
beautiful
thought of it
story.
that way.
Yeah, yeah.
That's true,
I
yeah.
right? Yeah. I think I got that from Ed Milet.
Oh, yeah?
I listen to
Yeah,
him
that's
quite a
a
bit.
that's a great thought, and a great way to think of things because it's really true because you go back and you empathize with it, especially as you get older and older. It's like, you know, I think you become more humble and the ego is long out the window, so
Absolutely. So I would love to get practical just because I know my audience so well.
yeah,
So they're going to want to know how this works. So somebody hears this episode, they're renting, they want their rent reported. What do they actually do? Walk us through it step by step. So like for instance, who qualifies? What are the actual requirements? Like let's get nitty-gritty.
for sure. So I'd like to show you how Rental Karma does it, and then maybe how the
Yeah.
industry has evolved, so that
Please.
people could, because there's a lot of companies that came in and got venture capital backed, but they do
Yeah.
a different process, and there's pros and cons to it. And I think, you
Yeah.
know, at Rental Karma, we have this, we have a core value list that we came up with years ago together as a team.
Hmm.
And on the top of that list is you always do the right thing, even when nobody's looking over your shoulder.
Amen.
And it's very important that we don't give any bad direction, you
Yeah.
know. And if I think I'm even given somewhat something, there's a question, I tell them what that downside could be so they
Yeah.
can understand it, you know. And
I
a
love
lot of
that.
things we go through in life, especially when it comes to money or finance or buying a car or whatever, they don't tell you the whole story. And I think that's, you
Agreed.
know, a disservice to folks.
Agreed.
Yeah, but if you want to use rental karma, you can add your past rent onto your credit report as well as your ongoing. You can either sign up online, takes about 5 minutes, or you can do an expedited phone call if you need something same day. But because it's so quick now, that's really not even that big of a deal. It's an additional $25 for an expedited call. And what happens then is we do that verification all during that call, and it uploads to the credit bureau that night. So it's on there within a day or two,
Wow. Wow.
which is way faster than the early days. You know, it used to take
Wow.
over a month back in the day. Um, but if you sign up online, it just takes a couple of days because the team's doing that background. You're kind of in line with the people who signed up that day or the day before, and it might take a few more days. But it's a very affordable service. It's $75 to add all your past rent ever since you moved in. And this is at your current rental, not a past rental. And that's because credit's all about open accounts. That's what your score is calculated. The only time a closed account impacts your credit score is if there's a negative on the closed account that happened in the last 2 years. And then you got to do a little bit of math to figure out how long ago it happened, what was the penalty, and how much of the penalty is left. And I can talk about that a little bit further. So it's all the way back at your past rental. What's really cool about it is there's a couple of things that make it a huge benefit for folks. One, it doesn't matter who you rent from. You can rent from a family member as long as you're the owner of the property, a landlord, or a property management company. The key is that the person has got to be the owner of the property. So a sublease, we all know a couch surfer. Everybody's got a buddy who the girlfriend kicked him out and he's on his renting a room for his buddy who's also renting. Those situations we can't help, unfortunately, because unless the owner of the property can verify that that person that's renting the room is also contributing to the rent, and then they can qualify. But a property management company is just like a regular apartment company or whatever. We send a form over to them, they verify it, or we can actually verify it through their portal that they pay online. And that verification happens through there. What's really, really beneficial is that it doesn't matter how you pay your rent, Micah. You can pay with cash, money order, check, Venmo, online portal, whatever, and you can still use our service. That's important because over half of Americans don't pay their rent consistently out of a checking account. There's some rent companies out there, management companies, that if you miss one payment on your rent more than 5 days, they require you to make the next payment with an official bank check. You have to go to your bank and get an official check and pay the $200 late fee just to pay your rent. They disable you to pay it online until it's caught up or whatever. So that like breaks the data flow if you're going to use another company that does what they do checking account verification. And I'll share that with you when I compare the industry part of things. But in the end of the day, the more history you have, the bigger the impact.
Amazing.
So if you have only been renting for 3 months, and I warn people, this is one of the things. People go, well, I'm renting and I just moved 3 months ago. Cullen will tell you, unless you have very young credit, and we ask, how long have you had your car loan or a student loan or whatever, if you have older accounts, adding 3 months of history is not going to help you score-wise.
Right.
And we tell them that. But if you're going to get a mortgage soon, having your rent on your report is actually just is a big benefit because it's included in automated underwriting with Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, has been now for 6 years in their software, Desktop Underwriter and Loan LP, the one that Freddie Mac uses. So it is beneficial. And it's a note to everyone because the underwriting thing is there's a black box. People don't really think about it. Your credit score just gets you in the door and it sets the rate, right? It doesn't get you approved for the mortgage.
Sure.
The underwriting is what does that. So what is on your report? A car loan, a student loan, whatever, your rent. Well, when they saw years ago that rent was going on to credit reports, Fannie Mae says, we're going to change our software to include that in automated underwriting. And if you know anybody in the mortgage world, they love automated underwriting. They don't like what's called manual underwriting, which means a lot of more work for them, paperwork, right? So automated underwriting is beautiful because if it's on the credit report, it's in automated underwriting. And Fannie Mae came out with a study a few years back and said, approvals are way up when rent's on a credit report. And they even said this stat, which really sticks out with me. For every 100 declines, 17% more applications would have been approved had the rent simply been on the credit report, regardless of score.
Wow.
That's a pretty big number when you think about it from that
It's massive
lens,
Yep. It's massive. 17% is massive.
And that's not counting all the people that did get approved, right?
Right.
That's just saying one little thing to do to get that in there.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
That's
And now,
incredible.
yeah. And now we add utilities to reports with TransUnion, which is huge. And what's so cool is it's not one utility, it's up to 4. Phone bill, electric, gas, or water. And I get a kick out of this. It's kind of getting a little old at the moment, but I ask everybody, how long have you had your phone company? 9 out of 10 people use the same word. This blew me away. I thought they'd say 6 years, 5 years, whatever. Because they know how long they've been renting. They say that with a number. I've been renting for 15 years. When they say their phone, they go forever. 9 out of 10 of them say forever.
Yep.
And I just go, well, would you like forever on your credit report? You've been paying the bill forever and you want that on there, And then with that one, what's also nice with utilities is it does the same. It goes back till you've had the account open. And I tell people, for example, in Colorado, I've had Excel Energy for 15 years. Even though I've lived at 4 different addresses, I didn't get in a different account number when I moved from one house to another.
Yeah.
They just had that little button that says transfer service, right? That you still had the same account number. So I literally have a 15-year-old account from Excel on there. And even though my power company does both my gas and my electric, it shows them the same bill, we are allowed to split them into 2 separate accounts. It reports one for your gas and one for your electric. So literally 2 15-year-old accounts.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, you and I, when we had previously spoken, you've talked about, what people are seeing as far as point increases, but just give us a roundabout as far as what you have seen, because obviously you've been doing this for a very long time. walk us through what you've seen having all of this positive payment history added to your credit report. And if you can, please tell people the importance and the significance of payment history and why it is so helpful.
Yeah. So, the average person that adds 2 years of history, Micah, if they have, I would say, less than 5 open accounts, and they have credit age on average that's 3 years or less, see at least they see on average a 40-point increase. Why?
Wow.
Because it's the math just fitting in. And the
Hmm.
overwhelming majority of Americans have less than 3 years of credit age, because that formula for credit age, people say to me all the time, my credit age says 3 years and 6 months, Colin, but that's not right. They say that all the time. And they go, because I've had my car loan for 5.5 years, or I've had my
Right.
student loans for 10 years. It
Right.
says it right here. And I'm like, I know it, but it's an average.
Yep.
And I do this third grade math. It literally is. And we all get A pluses in third grade math when we're in our 50s, right? It's not hard. So it's literally adding up the total of the three accounts. Say you got three accounts: a 5-year-old account, a 2-year-old, and a 2-year-old account. 5 plus 2 is 7, plus 2 more is 9. 9
Hmm.
divided by 3 is 3. That's your
Yep.
average credit age.
Yeah.
So if you go add 10 years of rent to that, now you take 19 and divide it by 4, you just jumped up to 4.8 versus 3.
Yeah.
So you go from a C to a B, right?
Hmm.
In terms of a grade. I'll give all those credit factors a grade, an individual grade, because
Hmm.
people can relate to grades. And I
Sure.
tell them their overall credit score is like their GPA, their grade point average, and it's factored in by these 5 grades from these 5 classes: credit utilization, their age, payment history, etc. Payment history, as you say, is incredibly important because it's 40% of your score, right? So the more you have, the better. But the big thing that really kills folks on that one is one late payment could drop a credit score 85 points. And if you are at a 700 today because you did everything right and you missed one payment on a $25 Kohl's credit card, it doesn't matter it's 25 bucks for the credit card or $500 for the car loan. The reality is that's one late payment, and when it happens on that day, your 85 points takes you down to 615, which is a D.
Yeah.
And that penalty lasts for a long time. The other thing, in that basic example, it's not about the amount of the
Yeah.
payment. So, like, a lot of people think, well, if I pay more in rent, I'm going to have a better credit score.
Yeah.
It's not how it works. You can have, one of my favorite stories is a young lady in Inglewood on the south side of Chicago, near where they have that Whole Foods that they put in the underserved neighborhood.
Mm.
She was paying $87 a month in her subsidized rent.
Wow.
Within 6 months, she found money to come to us and use our service. She got her credit intact. She ended up getting a full-time job she'd been trying to get for a long time. 6 months later, that young lady bought a house with down payment assistance.
Wow.
It was
Wow.
amazing. So it's not
Yeah.
that was $87, right? It's not the amount that matters. So, like, if you add 10 years of a phone bill that was $50, or
Hmm.
10 years of rent that was 1,500, it's the same exact math on your credit report,
Yeah.
which is what a lot of people don't think. You don't think of it that way because you're like, well, it was more expensive. It should be worth more, right?
Sure.
But the system, that would be discriminating, and that was built into the system years ago. That's why collection accounts are the same, and that if you have a $500 collection versus a $1,500 collection, the penalty's still the same, 22 points. It's not more because it's more money. And
Yeah.
people freak out. The anxiety this causes is crazy for people. You see it. I know you do.
Absolutely. Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. My favorite principle, I've been teaching it for years. My husband mimics it all the time. There is no bias towards wealth in the algorithms. There's just
No,
no bias.
no,
Hmm.
there isn't in that one. There is in
Yeah.
other places, but not that one.
Exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So I would love to dive into the biggest shift that has happened in the mortgage industry
Yeah.
since 1989, which is officially April 22nd, 2026. Vantage 4.0 is now adopted by Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. They're officially using this brand new mortgage score. And so it now incorporates the trended data, the rent history, utility payment history, where this was never, right, a thing. So now they're going to be doing this. But the big thing that I want to capitalize on again, and I because again I want to reiterate. So They're saying when available. I really want
Yep.
you to help to drive this home for everyone because the headline that sells is right now
Yeah.
it's going to be so easy for you to get a mortgage because right Fannie and Freddie are now accepting rental history as part of the mortgage score. And again, but what people don't realize is again, it's when available. So I would love to drive this home because and this is why I
Yeah.
decided after much deliberation and I researched so many companies, we decided that we wanted to utilize your services so that our customers would obviously know who you were, who could access you. But I really want you to drive this home because again, you said it in the beginning of the podcast, but I want you to say it again, right? How many of these renters are actually going to automatically get reported?
So there is no automated system for reporting at all,
Yeah.
right? Because you have 100 million renters and 70% rent from like me renting from you, you don't have you're not connected to the credit bureaus that all three of them once a month, right? There's no
Yeah.
mechanism for it.
Right.
And then the bureaus initially it started with the big companies to get them to opt in to send some data there. But the reality is, it's a very fragmented market.
Yeah.
So it's all about you either find a service like Rental Kharma to have them do it for you, or if you have rent from a property management company, a number of them have now been using a third party service to actually opt in and report those payments. The challenge with those is they all rely on technology,
Mhm.
which is great some days, but as we
Sure.
live now, we can see how our attention spans have gone from 20 minutes to 9 seconds. I heard the other day.
Yep.
Gary,
Yeah.
believe it was 2 minutes like 2 years ago, but now it's
Yep.
down to apparently 9 seconds.
Scary. Scary, right?
Thank you, TikTok. Right.
Yeah.
But so there is no centralized way for that in there. And the problem with the technology solutions that you've heard about, there's different ones. There's credit builder option report grant, Boom, Self, Kickoff, and others. The problem, it's great that their mission is to help build credit, right?
Sure.
I applaud that all day long. The problem is that you don't know the ups and downs of it as a consumer because it's mass marketed with venture capital money.
Yep.
And they use a lot of people have seen where you can authorize some company to access your bank account and view your data. They use a company called Plaid to do that.
Mhm.
And there's another couple of competitors that they have, but it basically is allowing, like, say you have an app to cancel subscriptions. Those are popular now. Those use Plaid to go connect to your bank account and show your information in the app. That's the same technology that these other companies use and the property management companies use. And the problem is it only goes back in the past as far as your bank allows them to see or your credit union.
Mm.
So a lot of times it's very limited to a couple of months, not
Mm.
the whole 10 years that you've been paying.
Sure.
That's the big difference between this is yes, you can get your rent on there. You can use Experian Boost and it does the same thing. It's that same technology, but it only goes back. It's very limiting to however far back your bank will allow.
Sure.
So that's the hiccup. And that's why it's going, but there's Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, the FHFA, which is the parent organization for all of this, right? They're the one that made the mandate, right? The
Correct.
VA has been accepting Vantage 4.0 for almost 2 years now,
Okay.
which is great for veterans. And they estimated that with this upgrade, something like 30 million more Americans are going to be scoreable,
Correct.
and like 10 million are going to be mortgage ready
Yeah.
just because of this. But you were
Mhm.
talking about where do you go to get your mortgage, right?
Right.
Quicken Loans, I know, is already doing this. They are one of the very first in the upgrade. They're big and they got the resources. They're like, yeah, we're ready to go because they sell loans to Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac just like Joe, the mortgage broker down the street, or your local credit union. They're all going. That's a big thing the consumers don't realize in the mortgage world because it's very competitive because there's a lot of
Mhm.
commission in it.
Mhm.
All those people that are doing those mortgages, they don't have the money themselves they're lending to you for your $500,000 house.
Right.
They're getting paid a commission to do this for Fannie and Freddie, who
Right.
then bundles all those loans and sells them to hedge funds and investment firms on the back end.
Mhm.
That's how they have what they call liquidity or just the money is flowing so they can have more money to give more loans.
Right.
But there's a big middleman called United Wholesale Mortgage. You might have heard
Mhm.
of them.
Mhm.
They probably handle I don't know the real number, but I bet it's at least half of all the small shops that
Mhm,
are mortgage companies
mhm.
that, they might have 10, 15, 20 more loan officers. A lot of them actually, they do the paperwork and they use Fannie Mae software, but it goes through United Wholesale Mortgage. And the CEO of United Wholesale, he was on TikTok within a couple of days saying, we're already accepting Vantage 4.0.
Yep.
So they are doing it. And also the federal home loan banks, which most people have never heard of. It's like the Federal Reserve. They have like locations in Chicago and Atlanta and others. And those banks are like the Federal Reserve for like smaller banks. So like community banks and I don't think credit unions have different, but they actually push their paperwork through them to get the loan to Fannie Mae.
Mhm.
And there's like 6 of them that are already thumbs up through the acceptance. You can't get your loan through the Federal Home Loan Bank, but you can through a community bank that works through them. But if you want a simple name just to get going out the gates, I would just say Quicken Loans, because they're in all 50 states. They're easy. They have the app, and it's why wait for the other companies to get their migration to the upgrade to happen. You know,
Sure.
eventually, probably by the end of the year, early next year, I won't be shocked if 80% of mortgage lenders that are doing the paperwork are already hit the upgrade, because they all wanted it in the first place.
Mhm,
When
mhm.
when this whole thing happened, this because you told me years ago how long this has been going on, since
Mhm.
what is it, 2020, you know?
2018 is when it started.
Yeah, when this will all
2022, the
yeah,
bill got
exactly,
signed.
even longer. So
Yeah,
it's been in the works for a long time until it's finally implemented.
right.
But back when those days happened, different entities were all asked to put their input into a comment period. I wrote a 20-page paper for it.
Mm,
And this is why we think this is a great thing.
yeah,
And all the Mortgage Bankers Association, the Realtors Association, all of them put and it was like 99-1 for it versus against it.
yeah,
Everybody wanted it because it opens up the market. And most importantly, I think for the consumer, Micah,
right.
it makes it more transparent.
Sure.
How many people look at their score on their credit on their phone and go, that's my score? And then somebody tells them, well, that's not your real score. That's not
Right,
real. And that's fake. Well, it's not. It's not ever been the truth at all.
right,
It's just not the one industry has been using, you
right.
know? Whereas you go if I want a car loan even 4 years ago, and I call Navy Federal, my credit union, guess what they use? TransUnion and Vantage 4. They've been using it for a long time for their
Mhm,
car loans or credit cards, personal loans. It's just that because the mortgage industry was has the rules set by Uncle Sam,
mhm.
they all had to follow them, and therefore it didn't happen as fast. That's basically what it boils down to.
Sure. Absolutely. Yes. It really is interesting the more history you know about just right what's happening and who oversees what. It really is pretty wild. But we won't go into that today because we could be here for 10 hours
Yeah,
easily. There's so much information. People have no
just
idea.
tell
It's
people to
pretty cool.
Google. Just tell people to Google who started Vantage Score,
Sure.
because
Absolutely.
their eyes will be open and be like,
Well,
"Oh,
I
that
mean,
makes sense now."
they should know, right? The Vantage score is owned by the credit bureaus, right?
Yeah,
So the bureaus were really the only ones who, I mean, if you think about it, who else would possibly compete with FICO, right? Besides the bureaus,
yeah,
unless there's somebody that came in and revolutionized a whole brand new system. But really, they were only the ones big enough and strong enough to even think about competing with FICO. But
exactly. And it was a
yeah.
monopoly. FICO had a monopoly for what,
Oh,
30,
yeah.
50 years, something like that.
Just
And
over,
the
yeah,
bureaus were paying,
1989.
yeah, the bureaus were paying
Mhm.
like $1 billion a year to license their math formula.
Yeah,
So that was driving up costs for everyone, which you probably saw in the news not long ago when they said, hey, it's going live. The bureaus came out and said, we're not charging $10 licensing fee like FICO does. We're charging $1.
right. Yeah, they
So the
undercut
industry
FICA
costs
by
just reduced.
900%.
Yeah, they were reduced just like exactly, but times 3 because you had to pull through your parts.
Yeah, yeah.
So there's savings that gets passed along and it's more transparent. So it's just a great thing all around.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually do want to ask you a question about that because in my opinion, when I see somebody undercut FICO by such a drastic amount, right? So 9.99 versus 99 cents, there's a thought that goes through my head, right? I have a very different perspective potentially maybe than you do just
Yeah,
because of what I do for a living, and so do you feel like this is a race to the bottom?
I don't. And I believe it's actually finally giving consumers the power that they deserve.
Mm,
Because forever, like I said, when I started this company, I was afraid of credit bureaus. I got friends there. I think they're great.
sure.
There's some really good people in there that want to
Sure.
help people now
Agree.
that do this. So my perspective is they think that people should get credit for their bills they've been paying for years.
Sure.
Yes. Why should we have to go pile on debt to prove that we have to have debt to be credit worthy? I tell
Sure.
people like the worst advice in all of credit is keep your credit card usage under 30%.
Mm.
Absolute worst. Why? That advice was given to the American public by some very rich individuals that have mansions in the Hamptons and Miami Beach and Beverly Hills that own credit card companies,
Yeah.
not by any credit expert.
Right.
Okay. Because the
Right.
reality is you need one credit card. You don't need 5, 10. I talked to some lady at my webinar. She had 23.
Mhm.
I almost fell over. I'm like, why?
Yeah.
What is the point?
Yeah.
You only need one. 30% of your score is how you use a credit card, not credit cards, and certainly not 20 of them. To get an A+ score for credit card usage, have a 0% usage, keep a card active, put Netflix on it, and have it on auto pay, and stick the card in your sock drawer.
Yeah.
You just scored 100% A+ for credit usage.
Right.
The rest of that is just bad advice. And the credit bureaus know this.
Right.
The system was built by FICO way back when. This is, let's see how people can manage a credit card and pay 30% interest. The people that gave that advice love sitting in their mansion and watching their bank balances exponentially grow by making 27% interest off of everybody carrying a balance because they thought they had to have a credit card to use it on Amazon.
Yep. Exactly.
That's trillions of dollars of wealth sucking out of the under 70%'s pocket directly into the guy down at Miami Beach.
Yep. 100%. Yeah, I mean,
And
we
that's
we
why
teach it to
it's the
people every
worst
day.
advice.
Yeah.
And it's not advice given by somebody that has the knowledge. Well, they have the knowledge for their bank account, but
Sure. Right.
none other. But that really is it. So, I love for people, anybody listening, please join me. I give free webinars daily for my credit workshops. I teach a class called Driver's Ed for Credit. And it's because we were taught driver's ed in high school, Micah. And what they taught me there was not how to drive. My mom taught me or my mama taught me how to drive in Tennessee when I was literally in 8th grade out in the country roads. My
Mhm.
driver's ed teacher in Illinois in high school taught me how not to kill myself and how not to get in trouble with the law. In credit, we should have had this basic knowledge. And that's why it's driver's ed for credit, because it's literally 1 hour of knowledge that will teach you everything you need to know to pretty much not kill yourself and not get in trouble. And if you do that, you can stay 720 credit ready by just not making mistakes. It's really easy.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, before we go, and thank you
Yeah.
so much, this was amazing. I wanna make sure people know exactly how to find you, and yeah, we'll leave it at that. How exactly do people find you?
Yeah. Just ask your phone, Rental Kharma, you know,
Okay.
call Rental Kharma. I say go search Rental Kharma reviews. Don't take my
Absolutely.
word for it. I'm just the guy that founded the place, but go read the reviews, because what you're going to hear and those where you're going to see those reviews is that not only do people like these tech companies, they rely on app store reviews, which is basically how many people click the 5-star button or whatever, but they don't actually tell their story in the
Yeah.
app stores. And when you read our reviews, you're going to read, I called Rental Kharma and Rachel was amazing. She helped me get this done in such a quick amount of time. She was so knowledgeable. She told me what needed to happen to make it happen. I talked to Courtney. I talked to Wendy. I talked to Cullen. They mentioned, I talked to one. They mentioned our team by name.
Yeah.
And it's because we care.
Yeah.
So go Google Rental Kharma reviews and then make your own decision and determine if it is, but just call us and ask if it's a good fit for you, because if it's not, we're going to tell you.
Yeah. I
We have
love
a
that.
90-day money back guarantee for a reason.
Mhm.
And I can tell you, it's a tiny percentage of people that ask for their refund because they got it reported and they didn't. If you
Yeah.
if you sign up to use the service and for any reason we can't verify, let's say your landlord's not gonna answer the phone, we can't get on a call or whatever, you get an instant refund.
Yeah.
There's no way on earth to keep your money.
Yeah.
Um, but what we do is we also educate our members, especially with rent. The utility companies are easy. We just get on a phone call with the support desk and they answer the questions and it's done. You get once in a while you get a landlord's a little like, oh, I don't want to give out any information or anything and we can't help them. But then we try and help those people, get a phone bill reported or something like that.
I love it. And
Yeah.
also, guys, too, so we'll have all the links in the show notes. We also, on our website, there is also, you'll see a little button that says report your rent now. And it actually takes you directly to Rental Kharma as well. So
Oh,
very
cool.
easy for you to find them through us as well. So, guys, if you are a renter and you are not getting credit for what you're paying every month, this is your next step, right? Don't wait. Talk to Cullen and his team, right? Like he said, right? If it doesn't make sense for you, they're not going to force you into the product, but take advantage of the trends and the changes that are happening now. Listen, if today's episode helped you, please share it, text it to someone, share it with someone, tag me, because there is someone, and you know who they are, in your circle that needs to hear this, and it's going to help them with their credit. So with that being said, you can find me, of course, at micaabigail.com, Fit Credit Doctor, and wherever you listen to podcasts. Cullen, thank you so much for what you are building. Thank you for being honest about how this system works. And thank you so much for being on Rebuild and Rise.
Thank you so much for listening to this podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please hit like and subscribe. And if there's someone you know that this would help, please share this with them. If you are looking to fix and repair your credit, you can find us at www.micaabigail.com. And if you're looking for more personal stories on myself, you can find me at Fit Credit Doctor. Thanks again for joining, and God bless.